From Florida's Space Coast, this is Your Career.
Welcome to Your Career. I'm Debbie Featherston, your host, and with me is Elizabeth Huy from the Space Coast Economic Development Commission. And Elizabeth, I'm so glad that you have joined me to really talk a little bit more about manufacturing. Give me a snapshot or an understanding of what is the current state of manufacturing in Brevard County.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Well, first of all, you mentioned Florida. Florida led the nation in manufacturing job growth in this past fiscal year, which is fantastic. So often we're not looked at as a state that is this stronghold in manufacturing, but in reality we are. And Brevard County in particular is the stronghold across the state of Florida. We have 12.4% of our manufacturing workforce here as a percentage of the total workforce, which is really significant because if you look across the state, it's about 4.9% as the average. So we really have a robust workforce in manufacturing. It's a major contributor to our GDP. 16.8% can be attributed to the output of manufacturing. And again, if we do a comparison and look across the state, it's about 5%. So it's really important to our economy, and we are certainly seeing a lot of growth with regard to the manufacturing sector here on the Space Coast.
I find that very interesting because a lot of people would never think about manufacturing for this county. They think space program, but I think that's where it stops. They don't think about and recognize all the manufacturing that supports that industry. But what are some of the other industries that manufacturers represent here?
It's incredibly diverse. So there's over 500 companies that make something. They're operating in what's known as a manufacturing NAICS code, North American Industry Classification System. And they are serving a lot of different types of sectors. What we see here is we sort of have a cluster of clusters. So there are a lot of intertwined clusters. There's companies that can serve a lot of different markets, but we certainly have the marine industry covered. Aviation and aerospace is a stronghold. Anything with Department of Defense, communication systems and electronics are huge here in our market. And then you have a lot of diversity in things like production of beer or production of food products.
True. That's right.
So we do have a directory, Made in Brevard, which is located on our website, and that has over 200 companies that are registered in there that have a profile. And it's really worth the time to go just check it out because there are so many different types of companies.
And your website is spacecoastedc.org?
Correct.
Okay. All right, very good. So tell me a little bit more about some of the types of products. I mean, you gave me a sense of that. Well, what are some of the kinds of products that people might associate with some of these manufacturers?
Well, that's kind of one of the reasons that we developed the Made in Brevard directory, because so often manufacturers aren't telling their story to the local market. They sell their product everywhere. They don't necessarily rely on that local base.
Right.
And we wanted to better tell the story of what is made here so people could take more pride in manufacturing here in our marketplace. So we've got a lot of different components that kind of go to launch rockets and those kinds of things. So it's little parts and pieces that could be your computer, your printer, all those kinds of things. You just don't know that they're being made here locally versus being made somewhere else in this world. So they're being shipped out. Certainly we have products for aircraft that are being made right here. We have the new spacecraft, the Orion spacecraft that's being made here in Brevard County. So the types of products do vary, and the level of manufacturing here in our market does vary a lot as well. But I would say majority are not necessarily those consumer products. That's why it's a little bit harder to identify what's being made here.
Yeah, because there are some things that relate to automotive, there's surfboards, and all kinds of things, as you just pointed out, right?
All kinds of things, definitely.
So one of the things I'm curious about, Elizabeth, is what about the Made in Brevard, and what's the criteria for someone to be able to brand it as Made in Brevard?
We do look at the NAICS code, so that North American Industry Classification Code is the baseline, that they need to be operating within one of those targeted NAICS codes to really be considered manufacturing. They don't have to be making it from the ground up, so it can be a final assembly type thing, and that's what you'll see with the Phenom jets for Embraer, for example. A lot of that is being shipped in from other places, but they do the final assembly here, and they may retrofit and make additional parts here. So it does vary on how they are inclusive, but we are looking primarily at that NAICS code to make sure that they truly are a manufacturer, that they're making something.
Yeah, they're making something, and a percentage of it is made here.
Correct.
Usually that's as well as the made in USA, same kind of thing. It may be, you may be importing some of those parts from other parts of the world, but as long as X percentage are made here and it's assembled here, it's considered made in the USA. So it's a comparable concept then. Okay, I just needed to understand that a little bit better. Thank you for that. What's really driving the resurgence of manufacturing from your perspective?
I'd say technology. So much of what we're seeing here is being driven by the technology that's enabling lower costs to produce in the U.S. versus doing things overseas. It certainly helps to protect intellectual property. If you keep it here in the United States, you don't have to spend some of those costs on shipping. But technology is really opening the door in a lot of different ways to drive that demand for manufacturing here in our market.
Yeah. So I'm curious about what's really attracting manufacturers to the Space Coast, because I think that there's been an increase in manufacturers. We've got Embraer, the aviation, aerospace, right? We've seen a real increase in that. What's the appeal?
Well, I think it really started with the retirement of the shuttle. So we had this incredible spotlight being shined on our community with the potential for that to be negative. But what it did was draw the attention to our market so that all of these companies could take a look and say, hey, they've got a ready workforce. They've got a lot of assets and attributes that we should really take a look at. And just as we were experiencing that adversity, we started to see this incredible interest from outside the market. And it was just a really good opportunity as a community to just capitalize on that and to work really closely and really with the many partners to recruit those companies in. And it's just been a fantastic past 5 or 6 years for our community to see so many different companies coming in and taking advantage of the great business community and business environment we have.
I was kind of surprised when I was looking at the EDC site recently that there's a new umbrella, if you will, or a new organization that has been developed, and it's under your umbrella, as I say. So it's the MASC. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and help us understand the Regional Manufacturing Association?
Yes, so MASC is the Manufacturing Association of Florida Space Coast, and we kind of refer to it as MASC, based on the acronym there. And the EDC has been host to an industry council for about 20 years. And that group advises us on things that are related to manufacturing. What is important to them? What do they need us to be focused on so that we can better shape our program of work to support the manufacturing industry, which is so critical to our economy. About a year and a half or so ago, that group of 20 manufacturers said, you know, we want to formalize our voice as a manufacturers association. There were at the time 13 regional associations across the state of Florida, and we didn't have one. And here we are, the largest concentration of manufacturing in the state, and we didn't have that formal voice up in Tallahassee and really leading all the way up to the National Association of Manufacturers. So we made the decision to develop that organization and that infrastructure within the EDC. Our industry council was the one that said we'd like it to be done this way. We want to make it really accessible to the region's manufacturers, and we think this is kind of the place for it to be. So we launched that back in kind of a soft launch, I would say, just about a year ago. An official launch in March of 2016.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about what its role is, how it's, you know, what its purpose and how does it support the manufacturers?
So there's kind of 4 pillars. One is to promote manufacturing products, companies, and careers. We want to tell that story and get the word out, really building on that Made in Brevard platform that already exists. We want to advocate for those critical issues that are important. We are fortunate because we are an association that's affiliated with the Manufacturers Association of Florida, we're able to tap into their very strong advocacy arm. But this gives us an opportunity to build upon that and really speak to the needs and the concerns of our local manufacturers as well. We want to connect manufacturers to resources and opportunities and each other, because often they don't get out and network much. They're really working, and they're really trying to kind of meet the
Nose
demands
to the
of their
grindstone
customers.
kind of thing, right?
Yes. So our goal is to really kind of connect them to each other, because there's a lot of opportunities for local procurement when you've got 500 manufacturers. They just don't often know who each other are, and we want to create that platform for them. And then finally, it's about education. So working with a number of different partners that can help educate these companies. We want to educate the existing workers so that they've got the skills that are needed. And we also want to educate that workforce of the future. We want to make sure that they've got a pipeline of talent that can meet their needs long term.
So how do you do that? Are there grants that you're eligible for as an association, or how does that work? Or through the EDC's umbrella that they qualify for?
Through the EDC's umbrella, through sponsorships, so we're able to raise some funds that can support the various programs that the manufacturers are demanding, and they're telling us that are important. We were able to secure some state funding this year that is helping us to work closely with Eastern Florida State College and Career Source to bring forth some relevant training for entry-level workers, which is a major concern for many of the manufacturers. So we are looking at the best ways that we can tap into various funds to bring forth more opportunities for these manufacturers.
I think that's been one of the biggest complaints I've heard manufacturers cite here in this area, is that they can't find people who have the right work ethic. Right, that they have people who are there. They've got the bodies, but they don't have the people that will come in, stay with the job, are concerned about quality, that really have the skills to do that. So, what are some of the issues that manufacturers are dealing with today?
I think a lot of it always boils down to regulatory issues and cost savings. Again, it's highly competitive. Manufacturers are not just selling their products here, they're selling them globally, and they don't have to be here. They can make their product wherever it makes the most sense for them from a financial perspective. So they're always looking at how do we really make sure that those regulatory issues are gonna help them to be successful versus hindering their success. One of the major issues that has arisen over the last several months is workers' compensation, which is something that's at the state level here in Florida, but it's having a major impact. At one point over the summer, they were looking at a potential 20% increase in their costs for workers' compensation insurance, and that has leveled a little bit down to 14.5%. But that's going to have a major impact on an industry like manufacturing, where that is a high expense for them. So we're following it closely. We organized a workshop right when all of the legislation was kind of coming to bear, so that we could help educate and bring that forward. And we continue to hear those kinds of concerns from the manufacturers. They bring it forward. We're not the experts in that area. We want to hear from them. Let us know what you're concerned about, and we're going to do what we can to bring forth education for it. And if we can, communicate with our legislators and make changes where possible.
Yeah, an increase of a cost like that is going to be passed on to the consumer. I mean, that end product is going to, elevate its cost by that 14+% that you just cited. So,
and it's dangerous for us as a state, because when you're looking at wanting to attract manufacturing jobs into the market, and you look at other states in the Southeast that are less expensive to do business in, it's something that we're really watching closely.
What would you say is probably the biggest challenge that manufacturers face today?
The thing that we hear repeatedly is about talent. They really do have this huge concern with finding talent now and what lies ahead. We're looking at an aging workforce. Probably 60% of manufacturers will retire in the next 10 years or so.
Really?
And that puts a big burden on building that pipeline of talent. So that is why we're working very closely with our educators from the public schools, from Eastern Florida, from Career Source Brevard, and an array of other partners, because we know that we've got to start changing the perception of manufacturing so that people start to consider that as a career option. So many people right now don't think about manufacturing as an option, and we want to change that. We want people to say, this is a good viable option for me, and there is a path forward. And we've got to do something, and we know that we've got a limited time frame to start acting.
What is it about the talent? Is it that we don't have enough qualified people entering the field right now? Is it because, as you said earlier, there's like 40%, or I forget the right percentage numbers, wasn't it about 40% or of the workforce is going to retire, so you're going to have this huge gap? Is that what it's
a mix.
really about?
It's a mix. So there's not very many that are choosing to kind of enter that workforce. I think you alluded to that a little bit earlier, that work ethic is a concern. They say, oh gosh, these people just don't care. They kind of fall into it. It's not something like they chose and they were passionate about manufacturing.
Right.
So that's one challenge. We've got a short-term need. So there was a statewide survey done this summer that was done through all of the regional manufacturers associations that indicated about 40% felt they would have significant retirements in the next 5 years. When we have done our own research on the demographics of the age of workers here in Brevard County, we're looking a little bit further out, about 10 years out, and we're seeing probably 60% in the next 10 years. So it's pretty dire. And we are just focused on education, really spreading the word. We are launching an image and attraction campaign that is in development right now, but really about messaging, about why should you consider manufacturing? What is a good advantage for being involved in this sector? And
what's a good answer to that question?
Well, first and foremost is there's a path forward. So we find there's so many people that kind of don't know what they want to do after they finish school, and they're not quite clear, and they may kind of fall into a job. We want them to realize there is a career path for them in manufacturing. Manufacturing does provide high wages, they provide strong benefit packages, and they have the longest tenure in the private sector. So it really is, once you get into it, people stay.
You know, we've always had, that's one of the things about Brevard County. When you look at the space program, you've got a lot of talent. And they've been able to, with the closing the shuttle, they've been able to move into different industries, different positions, and do well. Thinking 5-10 years down the road where people are retiring, do we have enough young people that will be able to fill those positions? Any idea?
Yeah, I think we probably will, because technology is changing. And I think as technology continues to advance, the types of jobs are going to shift, and the total number of jobs needed will shift. But what we really need is
Good point.
a trainable workforce so that they can continue to learn as that technology advances and changes. And that's why baseline certifications are important to manufacturers. There really is a need for these entry-level individuals to come in with some core competencies that they can build upon, because with this rapidly changing technology, they're going to have to continue to learn and be quick on their feet about it.
So this is where that partnership with the public school systems and the university sector really makes a difference in getting the education and training for existing as well as the up-and-coming manufacturing individual. So what approaches and resources are being used to address this particular challenge? I mean, is there something more than what we've discussed that would really help? I
think the exciting thing is that it's kind of all hands on deck, and we really are working so closely with a number of different partners. We're seeing it even at the city level. So the city of Titusville this past year just introduced a scholarship program. They saw so much growth in manufacturing in North Brevard that they felt it was critical that they invest some resources in training. They want to be sure that they can meet the demand of those companies coming into the marketplace. So that is for the Certified Production Technician Credentialing Program that's available through Eastern Florida State College. We are seeing the same on the other end of the county in Palm Bay. This year, Mayor Capote had his Mayor's Ball, which is an annual event, and he dedicated the funds raised at that event towards a scholarship program, again, for the Certified Production Technician Program. Again, they're looking at it. We've got to find a way to meet the needs of these employers, and we also have to create opportunity for our citizens. There are individuals who are likely not going to be college bound, at least not in the traditional way.
Sure, that's always been the case.
And this is a great platform for them to get that post-secondary education in a different way, to move directly into a career path. And because of the nature of these programs, they can lead to college education long term, just taking a little bit of a different pathway.
And they don't have to have, though, but they don't have to have a college degree.
No, absolutely
and I think that's
not.
one of the things back in the 70s when we began to see the jobs offshoring, these manufacturing jobs being offshored. We had a whole segment of our population that really, they didn't have a desire, ambition, maybe it didn't even have the aptitude for college, post-secondary education. And so they were kind of lost and floundered, and they were not able to find the good paying jobs at manufacturing, whether it's from the steel industry or cabinet making or whatever it was at the time, that they've really struggled. And so that's why when I heard the topic of the resurgence of manufacturing, I thought this may be really great news for this country, because people who are capable, knowledgeable, willing to learn, there's an opportunity for them. I think about the young people, because when you were talking about earlier in this whole area, the growth that I think that you're talking about, the resurgence it's really the advent of the technology. So you've got the technology, you've got the young kids. I have a grandson that's 13 who is a nut when it comes to, the gaming. He loves all these things. Young people who have that interest and capability may find that there's a great fit in the use of robotics and learning other technologies. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is just a different path forward. It still is post-secondary education, but it's a certificate program. It's 10 weeks. It's doable, it's manageable, and it's applied. So they're doing things not really in a traditional textbooks fashion, and some students are going to perform much better in that type of an environment.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just curious, what kind of support, resources, and people, we've talked a little bit about the people, so if there's anything different, need to really be in place to ensure manufacturer success?
Well, I think something like MASC and this new association really couldn't have come at a better time, because we are here, it's run by manufacturers. We have a very strict sort of ratio. We need 80% manufacturers to 20% service providers or associate members. And they are driving this conversation. They've determined that this is something that's critical, and they're concerned about making sure that they're building that talent pipeline, that they're getting the word out. So I think being driven by the manufacturers is important. And just working really strongly with the variety of partners that exist here. We've got a strong career source board that is focused on manufacturing. They're committed to that. We have great training and technical programs through Eastern Florida State College. Of course, we have the University of Central Florida, and we have Florida Institute of Technology here for that additional education. And really, we're seeing so much exciting things coming from the career and technical education programming through Brevard Public Schools as well. So really just cooperating with one another, it's laying the groundwork that is needed to make this possible.
It's really encouraging to hear that there's such great collaboration here amongst so many different organizations or agencies, institutions, whatever the term is, right?
Yeah.
That you can go to and say, maybe we have a funding source, right? We've got this grant, you've got that grant, and just, to help each other. You've got these resources, this expertise. How can we marry them together to really meet the manufacturer-specific need? That's really great. For individuals that are really interested in manufacturing, how would you describe the work environment?
It is modern, high-tech, clean. Anytime that we can encourage somebody to take a tour, we want them to. So in October annually, we celebrate Manufacturing Month here in Brevard, and this is part of a national grassroots effort. Typically, it is Manufacturing Day, and it occurs on the first Friday in October. But in the state of Florida, we have adopted it as a month-long venture because we recognize not everybody can be capable on that one given day. But it's all about encouraging people to take a look at manufacturing, encouraging manufacturers to open their doors, host open houses and facility tours to get people in. So we're looking at growing this effort. It's been around for just a couple of years now, and we've had some good success, but we want to continue that because I think if people can take a look at the inside of these facilities, they really would see what it's like. People are wearing lab coats. They are really doing some high-tech stuff. But it really takes seeing it firsthand and seeing what's really being made here and how you can contribute to the greater good. I mean, there's some really awesome products that are made here that are changing the world.
I love that. So it's clean, it's safer, It's because when I think about manufacturing environments, when I was in high school, I worked in a manufacturing environment for a couple summers, and it really motivated me to go to college.
Yes, yeah.
It was interesting, but it was more interesting because I was working with Hispanic people and I was learning a little bit of Spanish.
Yeah.
You know? But quite honestly, it's good to hear that the field of manufacturing, the whole industry of manufacturing is really on the rise, and that Brevard County is really doing things, the EDC specifically, are doing things to help, shore up these employers. So is there, for anyone that would really be interested in a job in manufacturing, what would you say, what parting words would you, words of advice would you have to anybody who might be thinking about, might be open to opportunities in manufacturing?
I would really encourage them to consider the certification process. Again, it's a 10-week program and it gets their foot in the door. This is a national credential, the Certified Production Technician credential. So it's transferable, it's relevant across all sectors of manufacturing, and it just provides core competencies. And it's a quite minimal investment, 10 weeks of your time. There are scholarships available, the program's offered through Eastern Florida State College, and I think that would be an ideal way for somebody that says, I think I'm interested in manufacturing, to test it out.
Yeah.
Go through this program, see what it's all about, see if you've got that aptitude and that interest and that passion for making something. And it's a real good way to get started.
Well, I really appreciate your time and the information that you've provided. And this, I'm sure, is going to be a program that I'm going to want to come back to, or a topic I'm going to want to come back to. So, Elizabeth, thank you, and best of luck to MASC and the EDC as they continue to support our manufacturers in the area.
Thank you.
On behalf of my guest and everyone here on the set of Your Career, thank you for watching, and remember, be career happy.
More information about this program is available online at millermediagroup.org.